Good morning. It is Friday the 12th of June. I'm Maeve McMahon and this is Europe Today, your daily fix of European news and context, live here on Euronews. Coming up, a glimmer of hope in the Middle East. Donald Trump says Washington and Tehran are on the verge of a peace deal and that planned missile strikes have been called off. The announcement follows 2 days of escalating attacks that threatened to shatter a very fragile ceasefire. Tehran, however, says no final agreement has been reached. This as the European Central Bank raises interest rates for the first time in years in a bid to stop the surge in prices triggered by the chaos. We'll hear exclusively from the Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund, Kristalina Georgieva, about how the Middle East conflict is damaging the European economy. And 2 years after it was agreed, the EU's Migration and Asylum Pact comes into force this very Friday. From now on, all 27 EU member states will be required to follow the same rules on asylum procedures, screenings and reception conditions. We'll be hearing from the European Commissioner for Migration, Magnus Brunner. But first, let's talk about the World Cup 2026. And for that, I'm thrilled to have a co-host for the next 40 days, Vincenzo Genovese.
Good morning everyone. Indeed, Maeve, after all the controversy, the magic of the World Cup 2026 started yesterday night in Mexico City. Of course, it was the afternoon in Mexico, and it started with a great ceremony, lot of fun, lot of colors, stunning atmospheres, over 80,000 people in the stadium, great singers, the local hero, Mana, Andrea Bocelli, and of course, Shakira and the Nigerian rapper Burna Boy, who literally stole the show with this new anthem, Die Die. Maeve, are you already singing this, no? Die Die.
I've been watching it, yeah, it's pretty cool.
And this is not the first contribution of Shakira to the history of the World Cup, because everyone remembers in the 2010 Waka Waka.
Waka Waka. It's time for Africa. It's time for Africa. I love it. Still love that one.
Let's see, of course, if Die Die will be as famous as Waka Waka in the next weeks and months. But of course, the ceremony was not just about songs. There was also a speech from Mexican actress Salma Hayek. And there was there were a lot of references to the Mexican culture. Of course, opening ceremonies in the World Cup are the occasion for the host countries to show a little bit of their culture. We saw many costumes of indigenous peoples, which made the history of Mexico. And after all, the name of the stadium, the legendary Azteca, is the name of an indigenous people. And this is an epic stadium for football fans. Azteca is the only stadium which has ever hosted 3 opening games of the World Cup and 2 finals in 1970 and in 1986, one with Pelé, one with Diego Armando Maradona. So it's a reference point for all the football fans. We can go now to Mexico City, straight to Mexico City, to live a little bit of the atmosphere. We are with Frausto Esquerra. He's a journalist from media outlet Animal Politico. If I'm not wrong, you are connected from Ángel de la Independencia, which is a square where the Mexican fans gather after the games. Please bring us the atmosphere. Tell us, how was it?
Yeah, that's correct. Hello to you all. The ceremony inside Estadio Azteca was an historic spectacle for nearly 80,000 fans who could attend, with some tickets costing over $3,000. The event highlighted international acts like Shakira and Nigerian singer Burna Boy, delighting the crowd with the performance of Day Day, the official song of the tournament. And on the pitch, Mexico achieved an historic milestone by beating South Africa 2-0. This is the very first time that the national team has managed to win an opening group stage match in a World Cup. However, the contrast could not be starker. While FIFA celebrated inside, the stadium was heavily guarded by security elements of the Mexico City government. Exactly as the match began, the tension boiled over into violent clashes between protesters and the police just outside the venue. It was an opening day of 2 completely different realities.
Thank you, Frasua. Thank you very much. Frasua Esquerra connecting from Mexico City. So stunning atmosphere on one side, tension and protest in the streets of Mexico City on the other side. You know, Maeve, this is the longest and the largest World Cup ever. We have 104 games until the final, scheduled to 19th of July. We have 3 hosting countries, Mexico, of course, the United States and Canada. And we have 12 groups with 48 teams from all over the world. By the way, sorry, I'm very sorry that Ireland is not there among the.
Well, excuse me, neither is Italy.
Yeah, but I was about to say you are in a good company. Can I ask you who are supporting them? Because I'm curious now.
Well, countries like Germany, Belgium and Spain, countries that have a special place in my heart, I'll be shouting for them.
Okay, I cannot tell you. I'm totally neutral, being Italian and being the sport correspondent of this program. Maybe I will tell you in the next episodes who I don't want to win this World Cup, but jokes apart, let's go to the games. François has anticipated the result of Mexico. We had 2 games tonight. We had Mexico beat 2-0 South Africa, and we had South Korea, Korea Republic, defeated 2-1 Czechia. So the first European team to play in this World Cup started with a defeat. So the ranking, we can see the ranking. Mexico and Korea are leading now the Group A with 3 points. Czechia and South Africa 0 point. Maeve, be honest, did you watch the games?
I did not, I confess I did not, but I will watch the ones when I'm interested in the teams.
Okay, nice. There were 2 very different games, and we can see some pictures of them. Mexico really dominated its game with one goal in the first half, 1 goal in the second half, and basically no risk no occasion from South Africa. There was a record in this game because we got 3 red cards. So South Africa ended the game down to 9 players. Mexico ended down to 10 players. And this is the most red cards in an opening game in a World Cup ever, while the most red cards in a single match in a World Cup was in 2006 in Germany, Portugal versus the Netherlands, the famous Battle of Nuremberg. This is another story. Let's get back to America. For South Korea, Czech Republic was very much closely contested. The South Korea conceded the first goal, but then there was a comeback and they scored in the minute 80 for a final result of 2-1. We watched some goals yesterday night. We will watch others. We have very great players in this World Cup. We have, of course, Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo, the 2 greatest players of our time, I would say, of the century so far. They are both at their last dance, probably in a World Cup at least. We will have Kylian Mbappé, Florian Wirtz, many other players, rising stars such as Arda Güler, other seasonal players like Harry Kane, many players to watch. We also have some issues in this World Cup, and we have a big elephant in the room, the participation of Iran. Of course, we know that Iran is one of the team playing, and Iran is at war with one of the host countries, the United States. And Iran has to play its 3 games of the group stage in the United States, 2 in Los Angeles and 1 in Seattle. This, of course, is complicated. Let's listen to Gianni Infantino, the president of FIFA, on this matter.
When people were saying, well, it would be impossible for Iran to come to the World Cup, I told them and I promised them that they would come, and if I had to go with a bus to Tehran and drive them here, I would do that. Their answer was, we will take the bus ourselves and drive it if need be. We qualified and we want to play. And this is the spirit of football. Of course, there are challenges. Of course, it's not easy.
Chill, relax, everything is under control, said Gianni Infantino in another part of this conference. But indeed, there were some consequences. The first one is that Iran had to move its training base from the US to Mexico. There are also some concerns for other aspects of the tournament. Another one is the US policy on migration and stricter border controls. For example, the first victim was this referee, Omar Artan. He's a Somalian referee. He's one of the most prominent referees, African referees. He was set to be part of the World Cup, but it was denied the entry in the US. He was stopped at the Miami airport, and to come back to Somalia. In Mogadishu, he was welcomed as a hero. And by the way, the UEFA, the European football body, picked him up for the Super Cup game, Paris Saint-Germain versus Aston Villa. So a very great gesture, I would say, from the Europeans. But let's back to America, and let's back to the upcoming games, because there are games every day, literally every day. Today, 9 p.m. Brussels time, of course, Group B, Canada versus Bosnia and Herzegovina, another European country, so it's not part of the EU. And always on Sunday, I would say, because it's 3 a.m., United States versus Paraguay, the debut of the long-awaited debut of the US team. And then on 9 p.m. Brussels time on Sunday, Qatar, Switzerland. So these are the games. Maeve, get ready if you are not ready.
Yeah. I'm ready, and Brussels is ready. In such an international city, it will be noisy. It'll be noisy because we have citizens from all the countries participating.
In Brussels, everyone is ready, even Ursula von der Leyen. The president of the EU Commission posted this picture in her social media, and this is a tribute. This picture is a tribute of another one from a former president of the Commission, Jacques Delors, who was a massive football supporter of French team Lille. Do you think you can do that?
I could try. I'm good at football, and she's brilliant too.
Okay, let's try. Yeah, I want a picture of you and to be posted in the next episode. But while waiting for the next games, please take a look to our FIFA World Cup coverage on Euronews.com, and see you on Monday. Ciao.
Thank you so much, Vincenzo Genoveva, for bringing all those details and all that passion about the football. We're so excited about all the games and the coverage here as well on Euronews.com. But now, back to business. European finance ministers are continuing today their two-day gathering in Luxembourg after the European Central Bank warned in its latest monetary policy decision on Thursday that, quote, the war in the Middle East is generating inflationary prices, justifying an increase in interest rates. For more, we can bring in our very own Europe editor, Maria Tadeo, who's been in Luxembourg for the last couple of days following the meeting and is still there for us this morning. Over to you, Maria.
Yes, Maeve, indeed. It is day 2 here in Luxembourg, where European finance ministers are gathering with energy very much in focus. This is their biggest concern. They're having to deal with a European economy in which the growth outlook, the growth expectations have been dented as a result of the instability in the Middle East and the situation in Iran. But inflation is going up as a result of the energy crisis and the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. That instability now pushing the European Central Bank yesterday to increase interest rates by 25 basis points to 2.25%. Up until now, for the most part, the European Central Bank had kept interest rates steady. Also in attendance yesterday in this meeting, the head of the International Monetary Fund, Kristalina Georgieva, who told finance ministers at this stage they have to be careful in the way that they deal with the energy crisis. Measures have to be tailored and they have to be targeted. Otherwise, there is a risk that they could contribute to inflationary pressures, and that is exactly what the European Central Bank is trying to avoid. The head of the IMF also told me that at this point, and this is critical and it is relevant as conversations around the next European common budget are about to begin, that Europeans should and they must invest together collectively in areas that are fundamental for the 27, meaning energy and defense. So once again, the IMF reiterating an endorsement of joint public borrowing when it comes to the European Union, doing it together. Let's take a look at this conversation.
Unfortunately, conditions have worsened since we put out our projections for European growth and inflation in April, growth down, inflation up. It is now even worse. So we are downgrading once again our growth projections for the Eurozone and lifting once again our inflation projections. Very difficult balancing act for Europe to manage.
And just a quick word on this point. You are the head of the IMF, but you are also a commissioner, and you are from Bulgaria. And you like to repeat that you are a European. Above all, the European talks around the budget, they're about to begin. This is going to be a difficult fight. What would you advise to everyone sitting around the table, the capitals, but also the Commission?
Concentrate on European competitiveness. Make sure that European budget has the strength to lift up productivity and growth in Europe. And that means fund together where together you would be more impactful. Defense, energy security, and of course do it with the recognition that in exchange the European Commission has to demonstrate value for money.
So go at it together. That's your message still with the joint debt.
When you don't have much money, spend it wisely, put it together, invest wisely. Just in energy, if we invest jointly, it would be 7% cheaper for the European taxpayer.
Now moving on, after years of bitter political wrangling, the European Union's new migration and asylum pact takes effect today. The reforms are designed to reshape how Europe handles asylum seekers and migrants, but they remain deeply controversial. For more, I'm joined now by our EU correspondent, Angela Scoogens. Good morning, Angela. Just tell us, what kind of tone is Brussels trying to strike with this overhaul?
Good morning. So it's firm but fair. This is the rhetoric that we've heard ricocheting across the European Union in the run-up to today. In a nutshell, the 27 EU member states have had 2 years to implement the Migration and Asylum Pact. This aims to overhaul the EU's rules when it comes to new arrivals. Now, they've had those 2 years and they've implemented them to varying degrees. But in a nutshell, this spans 10 major legislative files, but the most important being the border checks, the safe third country concept and the return hubs. This is shorthand for deportation centres set up outside of the European Union. This has got NGOs particularly up in arms. They're concerned that these individuals will not be regulated properly as it sits outside the confines of the EU rules, with some NGOs such as Amnesty International describing this as potentially punitive and cruel.
And remind us why this reform was necessary.
Yeah, so if we look at the data, there does seem to be a problem when it comes to returning some of these individuals. The most up-to-date information that we have from the European Commission highlights that only 29% of individuals in the last quarter were actually returned to their country of origin once the courts deemed them legal to stay. So clearly this puts a strain on communities as well as social services. But Frontex also has some interesting data stating that arrival levels have fallen for the last 4 years. So it's important to hold those facts side by side. But clearly the EU member states are crying out for help. We know the Polish Prime Minister, Donald Tusk, which is a country that has accommodated a large amount of Ukrainian refugees. They've stated they don't want any new arrivals as part of this scheme. But then we look at Spain, which sits on the band of those Mediterranean countries. That country's Prime Minister, Pedro Sanchez, only last month gave 500,000 undocumented migrants the legal ability to stay. So clearly this is a polarising issue, a political flashpoint, clearly. I spoke to the man of the hour, the European Commissioner for Migration, Magnus Brunner, in exclusive comments to Euronews. I put to him, the first question that I asked him was about this division. I asked whether migration was a problem or an opportunity for Europe.
It's both, I would say. It used to be a problem, definitely. 10 years ago, we did take a lot of responsibility as a European Union, but we didn't have a system. We didn't have the rules, the fitting rules, and we didn't have control over what is happening in the European Union. So it used to be a problem. It became a problem, but it can also be an opportunity in the future. If we have control, if we manage to fight the illegal migration, then there is room.
Can you explain how the Migration and Asylum Pact gives the control back to the 27 EU member states?
Yeah, we have firm but also fair new rules. This is the first time we have actually a comprehensive system, a European-wide comprehensive system with better border controls, border checks at the external European border, asylum procedures at the border, being more efficient, effective, quicker also with the asylum procedures. So it's a whole set of new rules, of reforms also.
Do you think Europe is ready for the change in mindset?
Of course it is, and we are ready to do the reforms, and we have to bring our European house in order. That's the first thing. That's what we're doing with the reforms, and the next step will be to get more engaged with third countries outside the European Union, to work together with them on readmission, for instance, on returns also. And that's where we have to put the leverage we have as a European Union on the table, always together with migration, be it visa policy, be it trade policy.
And if we look at the most up-to-date data from the European Commission, only 29% of individuals that were ordered by the courts to go back to their country of origin were actually deported. Is the EU Migration and Asylum Pact the silver bullet that will fix this?
It's not about the asylum pact, actually. That's about the return regulation. And the return regulation will improve the situation, of course, as well, because, as you said, it's just not acceptable. It's only 1 out of 4 at the moment who have no right to stay in the European Union are being returned. So that's why we have the return regulation. That was a missing piece from the pact, actually.
Pope Leo is visiting the Canary Islands. This is a major Spanish migration hotspot. He received a standing ovation from the Spanish Parliament earlier this week, calling for love and dignity for some of the most fragile individuals. Do you think that the views of the Pope in terms of migration are compatible with Brussels?
Definitely, yes, I would say. I had the chance to meet the Pope myself some months ago, and I had a conversation with him exactly on that topic. And yes, of course, I mean, human dignity, international law, this is all in the center also of the reforms. We're not negotiating about these facts. That is really important for us also as lawmakers, as a European Commission altogether. And we have set standards also. And we have to differentiate between illegal migration, where we have to do everything to fight against, because it's about the business of the smugglers and the human traffickers, and legal migration as a second part. And the third part is protection, of course. And that's where the Pope comes into play. And we have to do everything. And we have a responsibility also as a European Union to protect those people whose life is under threat in their home countries. And that's what we try to do. Fighting illegal migration, pathways for legal migration, and of course protection.
Well, as you heard there, Pope Leo is in the Canary Islands, where he's wrapping up his visit to Spain with a special mass at the port of Tenerife. For more, we can bring in Paloma García Ovejero, a former Vatican spokesperson and now the head of communications for the NGO Mary's Meals International. Good morning, Paloma. Thanks so much for bringing us up to speed on the Pope's visit. Just tell us first, what were the main takeaways from his visit and how have locals been reacting?
Well, definitely, dignity has no passport. And from the port of shame to the port of hope, those are, for me, the main highlights of yesterday's speech. But the emotion, the hugs, the tears, that was a historic moment, not only for the Puerto de Arguineguín, but for the Canary Islands and for everyone involved in the Mediterranean Sea, in the migration negotiations. This is not about the present, this is about the future, and also, of course, the future of Europe.
Well, you just heard there from Magnus Pruner, the European Commissioner for Migration, on the very topic of migration, and the Pope alluded to what European governments are doing when it comes to this migration pact. He talked about their indifference to the plight of migrants. Let's just take a listen together to Pope Leo.
We cannot grow accustomed to counting the dead. Human dignity has no passport and does not lose its value when crossing a border.
Tell us more, Paloma, about what he had to say about this.
Well, don't forget that Pope Leo has just started his pontificate. Donald Trump will disappear. Ursula von der Leyen will disappear. Many of us will disappear. And probably he stay as a pope because he will stay there until he die. So his words come from the gospel 2,000 years ago. This is not about politics. This is about human being. And this is also about the new era. This is the Pope for a new era. And probably he will stay with us. he will come back to Spain and he will repeat once and again, this is about being human and trying not to flee from to help them not to flee from their countries.
Paloma Garcia Ovejero, thank you so much for bringing your point of view there on the Pope's visit to Spain. You can read more, of course, on that visit on euronews.com, or you can reach out to us with your thoughts or views. Europe Today at euronews.com, that is our email address. In the meantime, though, stay tuned for more news and analysis here on Euronews. Take care and see you very soon.